Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
So welcome to the Healers Café, and today I have with me Veronica Worley, and she's a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and she helps men and women age gracefully and beautifully by getting to the root cause of belly fat, energy loss, hormone and mineral imbalances. She specializes in mineral imbalances, which can be the root to weight gain and energy loss and hormone imbalances. Once tested, you learn the exact process needed to get the body back in balance and overcome disease and symptoms. And she does this by using functional lab testing, food and lifestyle changes so that you can get well and stay well. So welcome, Veronica. And many people may not know that there are actually tests available, and when they're feeling terrible without energy and they're gaining weight and they've done every diet under the sun, that there may be actually something else that they can do to get to the root cause. So tell us a little bit about that, and we'll go from there.
Now, in functional medicine, we look at the entire person and not just the symptom. So we look at why that person is having migraines or thyroid issues or heart issues, and we don't just address the symptoms. And when we can close or stop the symptoms or address the symptoms looking at the root cause, then the symptoms will go away. Hopefully, that's the key. And so with functional diagnostic nutrition, we're able to use lab tests that are sent straight to your home. So it's personal. You collect the samples in your home, and we call them kits. So they're like little boxes of vials and things, everything you need to know. You collect your samples and you turn it in, and the results are sent to me as your practitioner. And I analyze and look at the results and interpret it and get with you and discuss that with you.
So how does that work then? Do you work with a medical team? Like, as far as, people are often worried, well, what's my diagnosis? And I have a book, actually, What Patients Don't Say If Doctors Don't Ask. It's all about the diagnosis and that whole relationship. So most medical doctors have at the most 11 hours of nutrition in their training. So many of them have become aware that this is a real lack in the training, and many are working collaboratively now. So how does a brand new patient, and they know they feel bad, they've gone to their doctor, the doctor says, well, just sleep more and exercise more, or go try this diet or something else. How do you intercept this process, which leads to a very long, dissatisfied road?
Right. Yes. Well, clients usually come to me because they are at their end. They have tried every type of conventional doctor or even other alternative treatments and have not found success. And they're tired of the medications. They're tired of saying they have to have surgery and all these sorts of things. And they want to know how they can heal their bodies naturally through natural causes. Mm-hmm. So I don't work by myself. I work under a team of doctors through a professional organization called AFDNP. And this is through my organization, FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. So I tell people straight up, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to diagnose. That's not my place. My place is to help you see what could be causing the disconnect. So we say that we have one diagnosis in FDN, and that's metabolic chaos, that there is something going on inside your body. And I want to help you find out what that is. And it could be something as simple as tweaking your diet and adding more of this and less of that. Or it could be something more complicated, such as let's look at your minerals and let's look at your hormones and let's see what kind of imbalance is going on there and how we can add supplementation and specific foods to that.
Mm. So before we go, this is really an interesting subject and dear to my heart. Um, and what I would like to do before we go deeper in that is, what brought you into this field? What is your story?
Oh dear. Okay. I'll be short. No,
Don't be short. That's actually interesting because people are now that there's this complete chaos on as far as work, this, that, a lot of people are asking deep questions about what they want to become when they grow up or shift or change and doing meaningful work matters to a lot of people. So I just would like you to sort of share your own journey from, how did this become meaningful for you?
Of course, sure. I have a bachelor's and master's with a background in nutrition, so I've always had an inkling toward being healthy and wanting to eat well. Not that I always did. I mean, I was a typical teenager, college, but it was through my degrees that I learned the basics of nutrition. But when I had to stop doing what I was doing with my children when my children were born, because we decided to homeschool them. So I was home with them all day long and I was teaching them, and I incorporated a lot of my nutrition into the home life and all that. But it was upon the graduation of my high school daughter, our youngest, that, the first week or two after she was graduated in college, I had this moment of, what am I going to do with myself? I think we all go through that empty nest thing. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with myself? All these years I've been busy teaching my children and being with them. And that really only lasted about a week or two, because it occurred to me that I could finally do some things that are on my heart. And over the years with my children at home and being with them, I taught nutrition to the community. I had friends who would approach me. I was constantly learning and teaching myself and attending every seminar and reading every book. So I had a lot of knowledge that I had accumulated, and now I was finally able to do something about
Wow.
it.
So very straightforward in your case, like you were living it from the get-go.
I was, and I was giving away a lot of nutritional advice, and it was exhausting. I mean, it's exhausting because people would say, well, oh, what do I do about this? And oh, what do I do about this? And would you teach us how to do this? And so I was doing all of this. And it finally occurred to me, hey, I can make this a career. I can actually learn how to communicate myself in such a way that helps them and, much more efficient. And so that's when I went back to school and I learned how to coach people. I learned how to use nutrition and food and lifestyle to enhance health. And I became an FDN.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. So there was no, they always say, not always, there's so much belief out there that there's a breakdown and then you got sick and then you found it. Like for you, it was just the way you lived, or is there more?
I didn't even go into that. There was a breakdown. I did have some health issues. We moved 3 times in 4 years, and the stress put me in a wheelchair for 10 months after we moved. I couldn't walk because of heel spurs, and I was eating bad. I couldn't cook, and 20 pounds later, and just depression. And I finally realized, hey, I can do something about this. I have this nutrition background. I don't have to eat poorly. I can fix this. And so that's when I actually started my journey back to health. And then that's when I went back to school, and my business was started as a result of that health.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was going to say that's because it seemed like there's a gap.
Yeah, there is. I didn't, like I said, I don't want to go into a lot of detail. I mean, unless you want me to, but
no, but the thing, I find it always inspiring to see what is the step-by-step sort of roadmap of realization and what makes it possible for people to have a shift in their career, to really connect to what mattered to them. So with the children though, you taught them well how to eat before or after your own crisis and meltdown? Before. Okay. So, that's even more interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I raised my children without sugar in the home. I mean, we were very healthy, and so they were very healthy. So I always had that, not always, but I most of my adult life have had this health reality, but it was learning how to help others, which is where the shift was when I got sick and I had these health issues and I became depressed and hormonally and adrenally dysfunctional. That's when I realized I have to help myself and learn how to help others.
Okay. And so what happens? Because now your story, it's starting to resonate with so many people that I've helped out in my practice too. And maybe this would be wonderful if you could share this. What knowing better, because you have information, you had the knowledge, you had the practice. What allowed you to go down the slippery slope? What was it? I mean, obviously you got out of it, and you got out of it with brilliant colors, and now this is your mission. But what allowed you to go down? Because I find that fascinating.
That's a very interesting question. I believe it was because of the stress of a move. So many of us have many stressors, whatever those look like. And my stressor was moving. We were in a new city, a new state. I had left one of my daughters in our other state in college and left our friends, our lifetime friends. It was very dramatic. It was very difficult being in a new place, a new situation, needing to get out and meet people and reestablish myself. And I couldn't because I was stuck at home because my feet hurt so bad. I couldn't even get out of my chair to get me a drink of water without pain. So it was very depressing. And probably if I had had the accountability of someone, I mean, I had my family, but sometimes families don't really know how to help you, they just feel for you, Maybe if I'd had the accountability of someone who could look outside of my situation, but it was a stressor. It was a stressor that did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it does seem that that's the thing that brings people down, right? And it's to recognize what helped them in the stress to get out of it. So for you, what put the light on that, okay, wait a minute here, I know what to do? How did you do that?
Actually, it was my faith. So I actually decided one day, as I was reading and praying, I decided one day that I need to get up and go start walking my neighborhood and praying. It was the idea that I'm going to quit feeling sorry for myself, and I'm going to look outside of myself and start looking how I can help others. And it was through walking. And I began to take a walk. And it took me 3 weeks to do that because I'm looking down at my feet and I'm saying, how in the world can I even do this? I can't even walk, to the bathroom. But I did. I obeyed. And I started walking. And I started walking around my neighborhood, praying for my neighbors, praying for my feet, praying for these hands, and I did that. I didn't do that every day because it really wiped me out the rest of the day. I was in pain and I couldn't do anything else. But I did that. And as a result, things began to change. And I started having these opportunities. And these opportunities would be, to love someone who's unlovable. I had to figure out how to be with this person and deal with this person who was in my life that's very unlovable. And so that, reaching out to someone who was in need that I was extremely uncomfortable with. And so I was doing these things outside of my comfort zone, including I was asked to give a talk to my local church, and that was outside my comfort zone. I was, and putting all of my information down into a talk like that was a new experience for me, and including stepping out of my comfort zone and changing my career, moving from being a high school teacher who taught nutrition to becoming an FDN and starting my own business. That was completely outside of my comfort zone. And as a result, one day it occurred to me that, I don't think I have to use those carts at the grocery store anymore. I think I can do this without my feet hurting. And lo and behold, I realized my feet didn't hurt as much. And I got better and I was well. Of course, I was also incorporating the nutrition and eating well and starting to try to do a little more exercise and that I could. And so all those things had a part to play in it too. But, reaching outside of myself. And that is, I think, probably the most difficult thing we as human beings have to deal with. How do we get outside of our issue, and look out,
Yeah, no, that's very it's a very moving point, because it's taking the first step, in your case, literally, with aching
Yeah,
feet, you know,
literally.
and doing that, and having the faith that you have this inner calling, this inner realization. You don't know what's going to happen, but you have faith that you need to just keep moving forward, right? And then it's like trusting life, that things will show up for you and things will shift. Whereas if you just stay in the victim mode, nothing's going to change.
And
Right?
I was in that victim mode. I would sit in my chair and I would, poor little me. I can't unpack my boxes. I can't get out and meet people. I can't make dinner. Okay, we'll order another pizza, So I was there.
Yeah, that's an amazing journey. Okay, let's go back into nutrition now, because I mean, what I've understood in healing is it's not one thing, it's all things. But if you're missing a piece, that can be the thing that stops everything. So if you have the good attitude, you take the first steps. But let's say that you're not eating well, or you think you are. That's the hardest part. So what are things that people could look at from a nutritional basis, that now that you're in practice and you're helping people, what are things that often are overlooked, as far as when people gain weight or they lose energy? What are the main things you've noticed? And I know this is not prescriptive because everyone's different, but what are the things you've noticed?
I think a lot of what I get is that people think it's difficult to eat well. People think it's expensive, and people think that it's time consuming. So one of my missions with my business is to help people see just the opposite of that it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be difficult, and it doesn't have to be something that takes a lot of time. And so one of the things I do work with my clients on is menu planning, and we look at how they can purchase their foods and inexpensively, and how they can save money in that aspect, and how they can put simple, easy meals on the table. And I think with our processed foods and all the food gourmet things, even like the gourmet shows that are on TV, people have this idea that they have to put out this tremendous 7-course meal, and it takes all these recipes. And, I tell them, I don't look at a recipe hardly if it's more than 5 ingredients, has to be easy, has to be delicious. And crock-pot is my best friend. And, and if people are eating whole foods and staying away from processed foods, it really is easy, if I can use that term lightly, to make healthy foods, because you're looking at a meat and vegetable and a starch, right? You don't have to pull together and, have all the spices and things are nice, but you don't have to, it doesn't have to be that. Start small and then eventually start to work your way into adding more interesting things to your menu.
Yeah. So you're suggesting, as a first start, make it simple, and more like remove the foods that aren't real foods. That's like a very straightforward, simple thing. Shop on the outside, not the inside.
Whole foods, stay away from packaged foods, meat, vegetables, fruit, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. Simple. And you can put a lot of meals together with those basic ingredients. It doesn't have to be just meat, vegetable, potato. It can be, stir fry. It can be more vegetables than meat, or, whatever the person enjoys. And we talk about that too. With each individual, everybody's different. They eat differently. Some people can need more protein than others. Hence my belief, and why we have the vegetarian dilemma. People hit heads, because the meat eaters, they need more protein, more likely, but the vegetarians don't. And so therefore there's this conflict, and they think everyone should eat the way they do. And so we have this big debate going on. But
I've never seen the one diet fits all.
And there is
It's not
none, and we all have different needs.
exactly.
And it depends on our body type, our metabolism. So there's different tests that I run with clients. If they ask me to do that, we find out exactly what their macronutrients, what their needs are, and then we talk about how to incorporate foods into their diet that will help them with that.
Mm-hmm. So how do you go through that type of assessment? Because there's people who have avoided gluten or who have avoided lectins. Look, there's all kinds of different theories of things that could be irritants.
Hi, it's Dr. Manon, and I just wanted to take a moment, commercial break, to ask you to subscribe to my podcast and kindly leave a comment if you're enjoying this. And also, just to let you know, I have tips for people in health looking for solutions to just a variety of issues. It's more like an attitude of health. And they're entertaining short videos, and you can find those under drmanonbolliger.com/tip. The link is here, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Inflammatory style foods. There's people that are avoiding fat because they haven't caught up with the research in the last 30 years. So, but the thing is, like, how do you work through somebody's now removed all the bad stuff that isn't real food? They're eating real food, but nothing's changing. What's the next sort of thinking that you do with those people? Because there's so many in that boat.
Yes, good question. And I get those people. Those are the people that I get. I don't get all really healthy people, but I do get those people. They want to know, why is the needle not moving? So we look at it a little bit deeper. And I do run some different testing depending upon the assessment. So I have to ask a lot of questions and figure out exactly what their background is. Of course, all the sorts of things that you do when you onboard a new client. But I look at, probably the first thing I'd look at is mineral deficiencies. Probably there is a mineral imbalance that is causing the needle not to move. And
like which one? Like what type? Which ones are you seeing as a big issue?
What, mineral imbalance?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, there's many, but usually it depends. So if a person comes to me and they can't lose weight, for instance, let's use that one, then I will run a hair tissue mineral analysis test on them, and we look and see where their minerals are. So if they have, for instance, the calcium magnesium or a ratio, or we're looking at the sodium and potassium ratio, if there's an imbalance there, it could point to a sugar intolerance or a glucose intolerance, which means that they're not metabolizing their carbohydrates. So that means, it could mean lots of things. It could mean they're overindulging. It could mean that they are deficient in chromium or zinc or vitamin A, or there's a calcium is not getting to where their bones and their teeth need it. And so there's a whole host of things that I look at with the hair tissue analysis. And that can also tell me, are they having adrenal issues? Yep. Or possibly symptoms of adrenal issues. I mean, I don't never say diagnose, but do they have symptoms of thyroid? Is there some possibility that they need to get further testing for that? And so it points them to what we need to do next. That helps.
Yeah, no, for sure. So there's like a system that people can go through once you've done the basic clearing that they're not eating crazy foods. Then would you then go to the minerals as opposed to doing allergy testing? Like, what's the thinking behind that?
Well, again, it depends upon the person, but usually, let's just use weight loss because that's common when I get that often. Usually, I will run the hair tissue mineral analysis. So we look at their mineral imbalance, and then we look at sensitivities, food sensitivities. So what kinds of foods are they eating, even healthy foods that they may be sensitive to? And I can say for a fact that was my issue. I was eating perfectly healthy, but I began to have some of these symptoms. And when I found out that I have developed a sensitivity to healthy foods, spinach and avocados and cashews and all these things that I was eating every single day, but it was causing inflammation. And as soon as I eliminated those food from my diet, I lost 30 pounds. It was amazing, like the first couple of months. And so, you know, eating foods that you're allergic to or sensitive to can keep you from losing weight or getting healthy, can cause some other, keep you from healing from your other issues. So we look at food sensitivities, look at, depending upon, again, the questions and how they answer, we could look at, do they have a parasite? Are there parasites going on? Are there any kind of bacterial infections? Do they have fungal overgrowth? You know, if there's a lot of sugar cravings, they have a carbohydrate or a glucose intolerance, according to the mineral test, and maybe they might have a fungal overgrowth, and let's see if they have any of these things going on and any kind of an infection. We'll look at that, look at hormone imbalance. You know, do they have, are they a perimenopause, menopausal, all that kind of, their time in life makes a difference. You know, do they have high estrogen, or the estrogen's too high? That, you know, that could mean some things. It could mean that their calcium is too low and it's not, they're not getting enough to their bones. Do they have bone loss, osteoporosis, and, you know, I could go on. But all these things, you know, point to some of their symptoms that they may be having.
Yeah, no, but I mean, there's definitely hope, clearly, and then there is a step-by-step way of getting to the root cause, finding out what's going on, because often people hear when they've come to see me in the past, I'm not in practice anymore, but I've practiced for 30 years. The first thing they'll say is, oh, my doctor told me that I'm under stress. And so because cortisol levels go up, nothing works anymore. And it's like, okay, well, then there's nothing to do, right? You know, that's kind of the almost the you know, because what do you do after that, right? So there is the whole mind and understanding our circumstances and what we talked about earlier, victimhood and all of that to look at for sure. But nutritionally, there's real steps to take.
Oh, yes.
To see what is really going on. And is that cortisol actually really high? Because that's not always the case.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Same thing with thyroid. I mean, they may not be having a thyroid issue, although they have all the symptoms that point that direction.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's really huge, because they could be diagnosed or they could be given medication when they don't need it.
Exactly.
And it could be making things worse. And I have people with thyroid issues all, you know, often, and they come and they say, I keep going and I'm not feeling well, and my doctor keeps raising my, you know, my medication, and it helps for a while and then it doesn't. So we look at it, and it's really because they have this other hormone imbalance going on. Their adrenals,
exactly,
you know, dysfunction there, or their female hormones, or something else is going on, or bacterial infection or a parasite. You know, so once we begin to address these other things, then the thyroid comes back into balance.
I have found too that often it's the thyroid is the secondary symptom, but it's still not the cause, right? It's often going deeper, looking at the adrenals much more. So okay, well that's an interesting path for people to look at. And so what is the name again of it's Functional Diagnostic Nutritional Practitioners. And so how do you find out about training? Tell us a little bit about what the training, what's involved, if people are interested in that.
Sure, yes. It's about 6 months to a year, the training, and depending upon your background, you know, I have a nutrition background, and also I had trained as a health coach, so I already had a lot of information already. But basically you are taught a little bit of nutrition, but it doesn't focus on nutrition. It really focuses on how to use lab testing and food and supplementation to help the body overcome these symptoms. And so you're looking at particular lab tests, and you learn how to read that and what that means, and then how it all falls into play with the body.
And these tests, are they, now with COVID, maybe that's it's changed, but are these sent to the clients or patients at home now?
Yes.
Yeah, so people can really take this time as an opportunity to make these massive shifts.
Yes.
And look at that.
Yes, it's very, very convenient, and it's always been that way. Even before COVID, we had lab kits, and I should have had some here to hold up and show you what they look like, but just like a little box, and it has everything in there, including the postage to mail it in, and so it's everything you need right in your home, and you collect your samples and turn that in, and a week or two later, then I as your practitioner get the results, and then we talk about what's going on.
Okay. All right. Well, so I think we've covered the subject really well. Is there anything that you feel that we haven't talked about that you want to share?
Well, I always tell people to start with food first, nutrition first. I mean, that is the key to feeling well, feeling healthy. There's all these other things, and they probably hear it and they read about it. I get people who are on 10,000 medications, or 10,000, maybe not 10,000, I'm exaggerating, but all these supplements because, I heard that this is good for this, and I'm taking this and this and this. And even though I use supplementation in my practice, I try really hard to go with food first, because that really is our medicine. Hippocrates said it right. Food is our medicine. And I've used just food with people and nothing else and seen results. So I highly think that food is important, but if you're doing all the right things, at least you feel you're doing all the right things, then, and you're still not getting results or seeing success, then I recommend seeing a functional doctor or functional practitioner, because they can help you get to the root cause of what's going on.
Yeah. So sometimes it's beyond food, but you still start with food. Yeah.
And food is before, during, and after.
Exactly.
And that's not always easy. People who are used to the standard American diet, or
it's hard.
Or that is a difficult thing in and of itself for some people, and that's why they need someone who can meet with them on a regular basis and help them understand how to make the changes and what to do and how to make it become a habit so that it lasts. We all have good intentions, but if we don't have someone there helping us, then along the way, sometimes it's not successful.
Yeah, actually, I have two questions that came to mind still. So when you discovered that avocado was something you couldn't have, I think it was in your own story. And it's funny how many people that is the case. It's very strange. What is that temporary in your mind? And then you're able to bring it back once your body is balanced, or do you always stay sensitive to avocado?
It's a very good question. Yes, thank you. There is a difference between food sensitivity and a food allergy. A food allergy, a majority of the time, the people, that's a permanent thing, although many people have gotten better as they grow and change. A food sensitivity is something that the body becomes sensitive to for various reasons, either overconsumption or for various reasons, your body chemistry, but it's not necessarily permanent. So I usually encourage the people, we talk about how to eliminate those foods from their diet for at least 90 days, preferably 6 months, and 90 days. And then slowly we add the foods back in one at a time and begin to notice if they feel any different at all. And every single person that has followed their food sensitivity diet has lost excess weight, every single one. I've never had anyone that I can recall, anyone who's not, and so, and they gain tremendous energy as a result. Now, there are some circumstances where some foods, the person can retest again, because I usually recommend retesting after 90 days or every 4 months, and they are still sensitive to that food. In fact, for me, I have a food like that. It's barley. I've been running the food sensitivity test on myself now for about 3 years, about every 6 months or every year, and it's barley. And I don't even eat barley, but for some reason, I'm just still sensitive to that. So it could be that is a food that I will not be able to eat, or I shouldn't eat. Same thing with wheat. Some people are sensitive to the gluten in the wheat, and some people are able to eat the non-gluten parts of the wheat. And so it's important to understand the difference between the two, because if you say if my food sensitivities test says I can eat wheat, it doesn't mean that you can eat gluten, because you weren't tested for gluten, you were tested for wheat. So there's that kind of complication that is important to understand. People say, oh, I can eat gluten. Well, then they'll have another test for that we can run to see if they are actually gluten intolerant. And then we talk more about going gluten-free.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, most people are sensitive to either wheat or gluten that I found out.
Wheat or gluten, yeah.
Most 8 out of 10 people.
Yeah. No, it's that seems, I concur with that.
Yeah.
But I have found though, strangely, that the way a food is made can differ and how it's grown can differ.
Absolutely.
Which is also an interesting thing. So that the problem with food is really, it's also an agricultural practice of foods, right?
It's interesting. It's very true. I thought for the longest time that I was gluten sensitive, but when I ran the food sensitivity test on gluten for me, and I can not only I can eat wheat, but I can have gluten. I don't have any problems. I'm thinking, well, why is it sometimes when I eat bread or whatever, though I have these issues? And I've narrowed it down. It's the chemicals. It's the processing. You know, is it white bread? Do they have food coloring, or they usually don't have much food coloring, but preservatives or chemicals in there to make it last? And those are the things that I'm reacting to. So that's interesting also.
Yeah. Or the baking methods, like if it's sourdough, you know, that can be very different than if it's not, you know, if it's more like that cakey stuff that has more like yeast and that in it, you know, so sometimes it's the combination as well. So I think to really differentiate helps a lot in that. So, okay, that was one of my questions. So can we bring it back? Which if you know that that's a possibility, it's much less of a compromise to take something out for 6 months and then know that it might come back. And the truth is that if you feel fantastic, then
that's the key.
That's the key, right? Like, at least you know that is the food that important, because you've broken the habit by then, you know. So
feeling better is definitely, you know, you notice the difference. So they're going to stay away from it because they feel better.
And then as far as allergy testing, there's so many types of allergy testing out there. I just wanted to have your experience and your opinion on what is a good allergy test, because there's some that are 50% accurate, which to me is like, okay.
You know, I don't do allergy testing, so I'm not as familiar with allergy testing as food sensitivity testing. But I do know that it's important to get a good quality test done for your allergies, because you can have one test and it says you're allergic to this, and the next test says you're not allergic to that.
So which ones for a food sensitivity is what I meant. I'm sorry. Which ones do you generally recommend?
Yeah, I recommend the one where they're testing antibodies. So make sure that they're testing the antibodies to your blood. So they're blood testing.
Yeah.
And you know, when they expose your blood to various foods that I don't know how they do it, but then your body will create antibodies. And that's the kind that we want, because the antibodies tell us that, oh no, something's wrong and I can't eat this food. And of course we want that to happen, but then that's the best test, in my opinion.
Great. Okay, well, I think I have no more questions for you, but I think this was really a wonderful interview with lots of information. And is there a way that people can get hold of you, or we'll be putting that in our post?
Yes, I was going to also just mention briefly that the hair tissue mineral analysis right now is on sale. So if people are interested in getting a mineral deficiency, then I can put a link and give you a link to that they can go to, and they can check it out and just see if they think they might have a mineral imbalance. It's called I call it my mineral imbalance quiz.
Right.
That way they can sort of see if
actually the quiz would be good. Yeah, if you could just send it, because I'm not sure when this will view, but it might be.
Yeah, I can send it to you. I've got the link.
Send it, and then we'll put that in our notes. Okay.
Yeah, and you know how the hair tissue, you know, mineral imbalance is actually Linus Pauling. He said that I can't quote exactly, but he said mineral imbalance is linked to nearly every disease in the body. So if we can that's where I start with every client. Start with your minerals. Let's figure out what imbalance you have and start to correct that. And all of these other things start to fall into place. So that's what I would recommend, is start with that. And the thing is that's such a nice, inexpensive test. It doesn't cost as much as some of the others.
No, for sure. Okay, well, thank you, Veronica, for your time. And
thank you, Dr. M. I appreciate the opportunity.
all right.
Fun.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon. For more information, go to drmanonbolliger.com.